How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a shop tour, mostly just kind of rambling and talking about the different machines that I've gotten that I've been using. And more importantly, this is sort of like a video for sentiment's sake because this is the shop that I've been in since 2016, so it's been like 5 years. And I'm gonna be trying to build a much bigger shop here on my dad's land, out in the woods a little bit. So hopefully before winter, I'll have everything put together and running smoothly. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't expect to be in this particular shop too much longer. I have too many machines and not enough space. And I have, like, currently it's pretty crammed and it's pretty messy, and I feel kind of uncomfortable like doing a video and posting it of how messy it is in here, but it's kind of cool. And like I said, for sentimental sake, I'd want to go back and look at this in a number of years. Just be cool to see progress and stuff. I never did any pictures of the previous area that I was working in, the corner of the workshop that kind of like bled out into like the majority of the workshop. That's a building off the side of the house, and then it wanted to get into blacksmithing, and I needed concrete floor and better space for that. So then my dad graciously for my 16th birthday got me a 3-burner gas forge. I think it's a Majestic forge. I think that's the name of the brand. And an anvil, and then I set up shop in here. But like I said, now I'm getting into machines, and they're too big, and I need the space. So before I ramble anymore, I'm gonna walk around a little bit and talk. This might be a really long video. You can already tell how long it is. But yeah, there's not gonna be much talk about ballad songs specifically. I mean, that's mostly what I do, so it'll come up a lot, but mostly this is going to be just talking about machines. I recently, well, this year, found a love for vintage machinery, and I just can't get enough of it, but don't have enough space, so hence the reason for the video. So let's see if I flip that around, fix my camera stand. Oops, sorry for the shaky video. Alright, so I'm thinking about first starting with the coolest machine, and this here is a Gorton pantograph. For those of you who don't know, a pantograph is a mechanism. It's a system of levers that does copying, and depending on where your pivot points are, you will get different ratios. So right now it's set up at a 1:7. You can see there's a little 7 right there, and then there's another little 7 right here. And something I found out about pantographs not too long ago is the fact that the pivot points are in a line. They're like perfectly aligned when it's set up in the right orientation. Like if I had one of them on a different number, it just throws everything out, makes it all funky. But anyways, so this is a pantograph, one of my favorite tools of all time, and this is how I do my logos. So you can see this blade right here. This is MBT number 2. I don't know if it's going to focus on that logo or not. This one's going to be Hammy Gavin's. Almost. Yeah. Anyways, so I haven't done the back side of the blade yet, but that's my logo that a buddy of mine 3D printed for me. So I do a 1:14 ratio for engraving that, and then I recently made a little jig for holding letters, and made some little stoppers, and I had to make a pound sign for doing the numbers. That was a fun little project, but this is a little bit small, so I've got a sheet of 3/16 thick aluminum that I'm going to be milling up. Hopefully I'll be able to do my logo and some trays, but we'll get there when we get there. So yeah, this is the machine. It's basically like a Dremel, and it's got a cool little pulley system so that you can have power to the head even though the head is moving around. Like it wouldn't have worked to have a motor mounted on the side of this thing, because you know this was made in like probably the late 30s, mid 40s, and that's the size of the motor it needs. So, and in that time, anyways, that's pretty much how this thing works. And fun fact about these, so these have recently kind of made a comeback in the knife making community, and so I saw one online and I picked one up and had my logo done by a buddy of mine, Andy, and I brought my logo to a balisong making class with Craig Kammer, and Psycho Bladeworks also went to that class, and he's a good buddy of mine. We talk a lot, and I've been trying to convince him to get a pantograph for ages, and I told him that I brought my pantograph logo just in case Craig has a pantograph, and Fitz thought that was absolutely ridiculous because nobody knows what this machine is, and it's totally obscure, and like the odds of Craig having a pantograph are just, you know, outlandish. But you know, I figured it was worth bringing it just in case, and Craig happened to have this exact same model pantograph, which I just got a kick out of. And anyway, so kind of fiddled around with that most of that week, and it was a good class, but not what I'm talking about. Mostly talking about machines. So then over here we've got the Bridgeport. This is old M head, so the ram is cylindrical, and you can crank it and rotate the head back and forth, which is pretty nifty. Not many, very few. I don't actually know of any other Bridgeport that has that besides the M head, so it's a cool machine, but it's old. Most World War II parts are made on these things. But one of the biggest drawbacks to it is the fact that they take MT2 collets. So that little tiny collet is what this big old machine takes. That collet is the thing that goes up in the head that holds the end mills. You can't use a chuck for milling side to side because it's just not designed for that. So you got to use collets. But anyways, works real well. If not, I've only done one set of channel handles, finished one set, and they were these little tiny ebony ones. I started a different set, which is just unbelievably painful to see. This took like 2 days to forge out this bar. I didn't have a way of cutting lengthwise, so I drew it out and then went to mill it, but didn't quite. It was like 2 in the morning by the time I started milling this, and I just rushed setting it up, and it's, yeah, not quite usable. But that's to answer your guys' questions of are you going to mill up channel handles. And I've got this bar, which I tried cutting with an 1/8 inch end mill, the same one that's in there actually, a while ago. And I'd like to try to do like a Bam Bally where it's got like it doesn't have a skeletonized hole pattern, but it's got like divots in it. So I'll be doing that pretty soon, but I don't know when I'll get to that. This is a different channel Bally that I've been fiddling with. I forged these handles like 2 years ago, and then just recently started working on the blade. It's just a real funky, weird one. Let me see if I can get the logo. This is 80 CRV2. Not quite. Anyways, fun, doofy project. But then on a more serious note, since I'm right here, I might as well show these guys. This is the first prototype MBT that I don't actually remember when I put this together, but I learned a whole lot from working on this. I learned, or since I did the prototype to where I'm at now. So I didn't know about radiusing end mills, which look like this one. Yeah, look like this guy. I don't know if I can open that. Yeah, there we go. They look like that. Get a better background. So that's what I've been using for rounding the scales on these guys, and it feels just like a dog bite 3.1. That's the same radiusing type of bit. So that's what I've been using these. This one was rounded on a belt freehand, which I really did not like. It doesn't come out as nice unless you're really good, but you know, I'm not quite there yet, and I didn't really like how that turned out. So that was an issue, and then another issue that I had was the thickness. I didn't like how thin it was, and then I also had an issue of crappy tolerances because I didn't know about surface grinding. Surface grinding is a really, really critical process that a lot of people just don't know about. For reference, this here is a surface grinder, and it's a Bridgeport, but the action on the table back and forth isn't very good, and it's designed to take a 12-inch wheel, which is absurdly big, and 12-inch surface grinder wheels are like $300, and I paid $500 for the whole grinder, and I was thinking about spending that much money on a wheel, but then it just feels stupid because normally like a standard surface grinder wheel is like 6 or 7 inches and they're $30. And most people have like a dozen of them on hand for different materials and just trial and error, you know, prototyping, just see what other finishes you can get and how good our tolerance is. This works with heat treated stainless, and you know, just all sorts of different experimentation happens with surface grinders. But at $300 a wheel, that's not very realistic. So I just yesterday bought a much bigger surface grinder that takes a 6-inch wheel. So that's one of the machines. It's not quite here yet, and I don't know how it's going to get here, but it needs to get here, so it will. That thing weighs about a ton. It's huge. But anyways, back to surface grinding. Surface grinding is what gets both sides flat, and you can get stuff flat on a surface stone, which is dead flat. But the thing is, on a surface stone, you don't have parallelism, which is where the flat plane of one side is totally parallel to the flat plane of the other side. If you're just using a surface stone and like freehand sanding, you're gonna get you can get both sides perfectly flat or just about, but you're not gonna get them parallel. So you're gonna have different thicknesses. You know, it'll be like a trapezoid. So that's no good, and that's why the first couple of prototypes didn't have good tolerances at all. And it's because they weren't surface ground. They were hand lapped on a stone pretty much, but not actually surface ground. So when I went to do the production ones, this is number 1. This one's my personal one. There's a handful of errors, so that's whenever I ran across an issue, like some of the scales, the water jet cutting isn't very good. I don't really know what happened, but yeah, some of the cutouts are yeah, there's one. Some of them just aren't very good. So I ended up keeping those scales, and then the blade, when I did the logo, I don't know if you can, again, you can't really see very well, but the logo ended up kind of crooked. The engraving was fine, I just didn't line up the blade very well. But yeah, surface grinding. So I ended up having I sent this down, actually drove this down to Jeff Dumas, and he surface ground the first 4. So that's the pass around one and serial 1, 2, 3, and then whole bunch of people helped out with that. But that's not much of a shop tour type of topic. So you've seen the pantograph, the mill, and then this thing I've not really talked about yet. This thing is a gang drill from the 1890s, which means that it is like 130 years old, and it still works, and it is super, super, super cool. Excuse me, super cool. It's got 6 big old leather flat belts, pretty decent sized motor. That's probably a newer one from like the 20s or something. And the action on it is great. I had to do a decent amount of cleaning up and fiddling around. I had to make a new key for this one. The key that keeps the lever on the thing wasn't actually there, so there were some issues here and there, but all in all, it's a really cool machine. A little bit noisy, but well, not too bad. But yeah, it's just fun. You need a very rigid table and stand for drilling stuff and reaming and doing anything with higher levels of precision. I'll show you a smaller drill press I've got that I've been using for a long time. This little guy was like $30 at Tractor Supply, and when you push down real hard, the table bends down. You can even see just bending from me pushing with my thumb. And then also the whole head like tips backwards, so you don't get perfectly perpendicular holes. So for making any precision stuff like a balisong, you really need a more rigid drill. And that pretty much covers that. And I already talked about the surface grinder, so now that brings us to the South Bend, which is like my most valuable possession. This is this is my Grail lathe. It is fantastic. This is also from the 40s, the mill and pantograph from the 40s, presumably. So right around the same vintage. And yeah, this thing works really well for doing hardware. And I've been turning out pivot needles. These are a couple of little reject ones. So I've been doing some threadless ones, but I'd really like to figure out cutting threads, because this has a thread cutting gearbox set up on it. It's just tricky, and some materials cut better than others, and I'm totally new when it comes to turning on a metal lathe. I've got a wood lathe I'm comfortable on, but totally different ball game over here. So this is a fun tool I've been working on lately. Quick story about the belt here. This is just I've got a spool of this stuff down there. This is just a cotton webbing, and I just glued it, and it has worked fine. The belt that it was using when I first got it was this guy, which ended up busting. And fun fact, the guy that I got this from, he gave me that belt, and he gave another flat belt, a leather belt like with the gang drill, and it was too small for the machine, but it is the perfect size for my belt. So that's what I wear. Got an American Bladesmith Society buckle, and that's what I wear for a belt nowadays. So just a fun little fact there. Then we've got the belt sander, which has been a love-hate relationship. It's been really tricky. The motor that came with it was kind of a piece of garbage and not what we ordered. My dad got this for me for my 18th birthday, and yeah, he paid for the one that came with a VFD and a good motor and stuff, but they sent some random piece of junk that didn't even have a switch. It just had a cord that went right to the wall, which didn't make any sense, and it wasn't working right. So I ended up buying a new motor, and then, it's 3-phase, so you got to get either 3-phase power, which I have redneck 3-phase power, but then if you just send power straight to the motor, it turns it at its full load RPM, which happens to be 3,250 RPM or something like that. And when you do the math with a 8-inch wheel at that speed, the feet per second of the belt is just insane. So I did get a VFD. It was like $170 off Amazon, but it was also Chinese garbage and fried, which kind of sucked. So then I ended up getting a KB Electric VFD, which I really like because it is programmed mechanically. There are jumper wires and bars or whatever. Kind of look like little fuses, not the brand Little Fuse, and not glass ones, but like the I don't know the name of the style, but they've got these little jumpers that you shift around in there, and you know you put in the specs of the motor. You know, if it's 480 or 208 or 230 three-phase or whatever the voltage is, you put your jumper on that setting, and etc., 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 with all the other specs of it. So that was really cool because there was no mistaking the settings. With the previous one that I got, it had just this little LCD screen and a couple buttons, and it's like setting the time on a cheapo watch. You know, you only have a couple buttons, but you got to like do all this different stuff, and it just, you know, with setting up a VFD, there's a bunch of information that you need. So it was a nightmare, and I'm just very satisfied with this guy. So that's the belt sander. And then I got a few other things kicking around. This here is the forge that I was talking about earlier. Where the other shop's going to be is pretty much like 200 feet that way. So once I have it set up again, I'm going to have this guy set up, and hopefully also that one set up, which I snagged off Facebook Marketplace. And got my anvil, bunch of tongs, bunch of hammers, vices, and a ton of other crap. So thanks for watching. Sorry for the shaky filming and long ranting, but it was just kind of fun, and I wanted to put this out there so I could kind of remember how everything was, and just keep in mind humble beginnings. And it's just cool to be able to trace or like see progress. Like once I have the new shop put together and running and stuff, you know, I won't be able to look at this shop. I mean, the building will be here, but there won't be anything in it. So it's just fun to be able to see where you've come from. So that's pretty much it. I will be posting small updates on that project, most likely. I'll either be doing like a bunch of little ones or like just one big post on my page on Instagram in a few months probably. So stay tuned for that. And thanks everybody for your support. It's been really cool being able to sell stuff quickly, and the overwhelming appreciation. It's just been really cool. So appreciate all you guys, and I'm sorry for the lack of content this year. It's been a pretty crazy year. Like I said, I went to Craig's class. That was about a week long, and that was in Illinois, so I drove out to that, and that was, you know, a couple of days. And then it was also Blade Show, drove down to that, and just a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I would like to post more, but we'll see. So thanks again for watching, and have a good one, guys. Bye.